Hi, Eric. Eric is the CTO of Flipboard, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks, KP. It's a real pleasure to be here today. As you just said, I'm the CTO of Flipboard. And at Flipboard, we are building the world's best personal magazine. What's a personal magazine? Well, imagine if you had the entire editorial staff of Time magazine creating an edition just for you, filled with everything that you love, from photos of your family to that awesome, hard-hitting piece on the US economy in the New York Times. All of that packaged together, custom curated and put together just for you. That's what we're doing at Flipboard. We launched in 2010 as an iPad app, but we're now available on all iOS platforms, all of Android, and Windows 8.1 desktop. We've been used by over 100 million people worldwide, and we are thrilled to be a Facebook platform partner.
That's great to hear. Great numbers, great coverage. So we launched a couple of things today, and you have been one of the launch partners for those. And those are predominantly things around identity and how people identify themselves within a product. So one of them is anonymous login, the other is the new version of the login with the options and the control from the user end. How do you feel about giving options to the user with regards to how they identify themselves within your product? And what are the benefits of each one of those login mechanisms, let's say, for you?
Well, at Flipboard, I think Flipboard and Facebook, we share a very common vision of always doing what's best for users. We are here in service of our users, just like you guys are as well. And one of the interesting challenges of the Facebook platform early on was that it was very much a one-size-fit-all experience, where you had one button that you were on Facebook Connect, back in the old days when it was called Facebook Connect, or you were not. It was sort of this one-size-fit-all. And that's not ideal for all users, because on Flipboard, for example, we actually have very different Facebook experiences for different types of users. There are users that want to use Facebook's identity platform on Flipboard to be able to share their persona on Flipboard. There are those that want to be able to curate and collect things on Flipboard and then share that back to their networks. They want to be broadcasters or publishers on Facebook via the content they find on Flipboard. And then there's a class of users that kind of just want a lean back reading experience, and they're not ready to share, they're not ready to consume. They want a much more lightweight experience. So before, we just didn't have that ability and that flexibility using the old platform capabilities to tailor a Facebook experience for all of those different scenarios on Flipboard. And that's why we're very excited by what you guys have announced today with anonymous login, and also with Login V4, the new version of it. We love the fact that we can now create these custom experiences for our users that want to use Facebook, but in very different ways on Flipboard. So some of the things that we're pursuing is, for example, the easiest use case is the anonymous one, where all you really want is the ability to access some persistent features on Flipboard. Things like being able to customize your Flipboard and then take it onto another device. But you're not yet ready to take the next step and share your identity or access data on Facebook yet. So anonymous login is great for that use case, and we can finally now have a Facebook experience targeted exactly at that use case with anonymous login. And now the next step is, let's say that maybe you want to take the next step and you want to provide identity because you want to be able to now use Flipboard's rendering technology to consume your Facebook content. So you let Flipboard know who you are, have access to your newsfeed, and then you can now view that content as a beautiful magazine on Flipboard. That's the next level that you can take with us. And with Login V4, we have the ability to request just those individual permissions that we need to enable that scenario. And then finally, if you want the full-fledged Facebook experience on Flipboard, where you can access all of your favorite Facebook content on Flipboard, as well as curate content and share that back with your friends on Facebook, you can full-on Facebook login. So we love the fact that there are now multiple steps and multiple experiences that we can create using the Facebook platform to have these really customized use cases on Flipboard.
So I'll pick on that last point about the option that we are giving to the users to basically select what this they can share with you or not. And do you think that this is basically a step towards a direction where we are building together user trust, where people are basically more inclined to click on the Facebook login button because the experience that they will get is basically one that allows them to decide what is that they are going to share or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in the old world of the Facebook platform, the value for users was asynchronous, where up front they would provide a lot of permissions to the application, and then asynchronously at some point and later on in their lifetime with the app, they would get value back out of the app. But if you can parse it out and you can really break up each individual permission, you can actually create much more of a synchronous experience for users, which I think illustrates that value a lot clearer. A great example for Flipboard is we can ask for permission to show and render your newsfeed as a beautiful magazine at the moment that you're ready to read that magazine. So we don't have to ask for it a week in advance, and you don't end up deciding to read your newsfeed magazine for another week, and then all of a sudden you kind of forgot why you even provided this permission. So making that value exchange synchronous, I think, is a really exciting thing for users that really shows the value of using Facebook on Flipboard, and I think that showing value is what we can do to earn trust with our users.
That's a great point. So as part of this login, the new login, we also launched the login review process, which basically allows us to ask the developers, our partners, effectively, to tell us why they want access to those kind of permissions that they are asking. So it's like a second tier of control, if I may say. Do you feel that this kind of a review process has been helpful for you during the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, where you actually went through the review process internally before you launched and identify what kind of permissions you really wanted or not?
No, that's another great point. I think that the initial reaction and sort of the initial approach for a lot of app developers is very much to steal an infomercial line, set it and forget it type of approach. And it's not, I think, for any malicious intent. It's just that we're all incredibly busy, and we all are working on the next feature, we're all working on the next version of the product, we're working on the next platform. And what happens is that we just forget. And this process working with you guys as we prepared for the F8 conference was actually incredibly helpful, because we got a chance to take the time and go back through and say, wait a minute, actually that feature we're no longer even supporting. We cut that long ago, so why are we even asking for this permission? And we were actually ending up storing a lot of data that was polluting our data store. We didn't even want that content in there, but it was just sort of getting sucked down. So it was a very mutually beneficial process to have us go and really carefully examine exactly what we were asking for, how we were using it, and it just made our product and our backend and our whole service more efficient. And I think the learning for us is that working with a strong platform partner like Facebook is very much a continuous process. It's not a one-time thing that you invest in. It's a very continuous process, and I've really appreciated how your team has also been incredibly supportive of us as well. So I love the fact that it's very much a partnership.
Great. So I'll pick on that last point about optimizing the kind of permissions, not because you are self-regulating those, but also because you have to go through the login review and try to understand from your end what is the best practice to iterate and optimize. When you have a product that has been out there for 3 or 4 years now, how do you keep on iterating and optimizing not just the login, but anything to do with your product, so that you build the user trust from the identity to the distribution of the content to the sharing on Facebook and so on and so on?
You know, I think that there's a couple of different factors that you really should think about when designing the great Facebook platform experience inside of your app. And I think it all starts first and foremost with the user. You have to listen to the user. And the best way to listen to the user is to see the data. I love the fact that Facebook is such a data-driven company, and you've been very generous with sharing really interesting information about conversion rates, drop-off rates, looking at exactly how users behave when going through this process. And looking at that data is really, really informative. And by looking at that, we can really examine what our users are doing and figure out why they're doing certain things. And through that process, we realize that it is important, and we can't take for granted that users understand the whole product in its entire complexity at the moment that they're introduced to a login screen. And we love the fact that now with this new platform change, we can break up that education process. We can say that, look, at the beginning, we only need to educate you about these 3 things, because this is the first 3 set of permissions that we're going to ask for, and we can move you to the next step and educate you about other permissions downstream. So I think looking at that data was so enlightening to be able to kind of break apart that whole process and really optimize exactly how we introduced Facebook and Flipboard to users, because it's really 2 things that we're having to introduce to users at sort of one step, one screen, which is complex. So that's one thing that I would say. And then the second is that I think philosophically, we absolutely believe in your stance about giving users control. Users really should be in control of their experience. That's how we've always approached Flipboard as well. Flipboard we view as a personal magazine. It's something that the users can customize. The users have full control over what that experience is like. They can make it all about soccer, all about sports, all about a professional experience, all about a family experience inside of Flipboard. So we've always really given users a lot of control from a content perspective, and we've really identified that control is such an important part of trust and earning trust. So I think that philosophy, that first principle has really resonated with us. So those are two things that I would really urge all app developers to think about. Look at the data and really buy into this principle that giving users control of the experience is a very positive thing.
Eric, thank you very much for sharing best practices with us. It was good to meet you. Good to
My pleasure. Always fun working with you guys.
Thanks.
Take care.